So the day before yesterday, I arrived with the family in Hanoi. We weren't sure of the travel plans because, of course, there was a typhoon in China, and then later it hit right off the coast of Vietnam. It was downgraded actually to a tropical storm. We were thinking there'd be mass flooding and a lot of different issues, but we actually did end up going on the flight. It was pretty smooth, just a 2-hour delay. And then when we got to Hanoi, the weather's actually been great. I mean, obviously you get rain here pretty much every day. You get an afternoon thunderstorm. It's just a tropical climate, but no mass flooding, no chaos. And from what I understand, really the areas that were hit hardest in Vietnam were right along the coast where they did have flooding and some evacuations. But fortunately, everything was okay. So after our arrival late night in the Hanoi area, Hanoi Airport, which is north of Hanoi, we took a taxi about 30 miles. I always have to convert north to a region of Vietnam. It's actually a small city called Bac Giang. We are right outside of Bac Giang, visiting some of my in-laws. My mother-in-law's, I believe it's her cousin, though I'm never quite sure with translation. But this area is actually quite quiet, and it's actually developing too. And you can see that the new wealth in Vietnam. A house like this is just beautiful. And the house we were at last night, another relative, it would be like a multi-million-dollar home in the U.S. I mean, everything was glass and marble floors But I love walking the streets here compared to Ho Chi Minh City. And I'm not knocking Ho Chi Minh City, but you could actually walk here. There's more sidewalk space. There's not the clutter of motorbikes. I don't feel like I'm choking from the exhaust from the motorbikes. You occasionally get cars, trucks going through, but it's got that real small town feel. What's also funny is every time I run into a person on the street, they're so excited to see I don't want to say an American, and they assume I'm American. They say a Westerner, as they would say here. And they all say, hello, hello. And especially the children want to practice English. So it's so adorable, so cute. And it just feels great to be in such a welcoming environment, such a friendly environment. So as much culture shock as I experience when I'm in Vietnam, and as a result, some of my grumpiness, people are just so kind and hospitable in this country. My wife, of course, explains to me the regional differences in etiquette. Just like if you're in the United States, there's a difference between Texas and California. Hello. Hello. And here's a little clothing shop. So I'll shut up with my analysis and just show you some of the shops here. We got toys over here, clothing items, very nice. Transformers, look at that. That's pretty cool. Wow. I love it. Perhaps I should buy a toy for one of the kids. I don't know what he would like. He's not a baby anymore, but maybe he would like some of this stuff here. Anyway, I digress. Now kind of go more to the main strip here in this town. And again, this is not Bac Giang proper in terms of the city. So I don't know if this actually has a different name or if it's just all Bac Giang. Clueless white dude has no idea. But even the busiest street in this area here is not really that busy. And again, there's sidewalk space here, which is really nice. Here's a kid going by on the bike. Stare at me. Some are excited and say, some will say hello and are excited. Others just look like, what is this alien doing here? I get a feeling that not too many people from so-called Western countries make it to this area because it's really not any of the, big tourist attractions. Now, of course, if you go to somewhere like Halong Bay up in the north, it's just packed with tourists and going on boat trips, and Hanoi, of course. But a town like this, what's fun coming here is as not just as a tourist, but getting to stay with my in-laws is I get an appreciation of just how people live everyday life here. Little noise from the traffic, but that's about as much traffic as you're going to see. Some of these stores is like a kids' clothing store. Some signs have names in English, so it's pretty cool. And then the place I had food yesterday, I mean, talk about all American. They have combo meals and burgers and pizza and just the decor. You would think you were in an American fast food restaurant. It's called Bravo over here. I went in and got a chicken burger there yesterday. So for as much as I say I like the local cuisine, sometimes I miss having a burger and fries. One noticeable difference with some of the foods here, even the so-called American Western foods, a lot of sugar. So like when I get fries, it's like caked in sugar. And that's a bit of a surprise. Even though I have a sweet tooth, you'd think, oh my God, I would embrace this. Sometimes it's a bit overwhelming or a bit strange to have sweet fries and sweet chicken and sweet milk even, when I just want, kind of more bland. But, when in Rome, or in this case, when in Bac Giang, embrace the culture. And here's where I went yesterday. This is the cafe that I went to. So it's pretty cool. Another thing that's not a culture shock, but an adjustment. It's hard to find a Vietnamese man that doesn't smoke cigarettes. It seems to not only be the norm, but it's kind of a sign of masculinity. Meaning in most places you're going to get a strong odor of cigarettes and cigarette smoke. And it kind of brings me back to my childhood in the 80s where people would smoke everywhere, in cars, in cafes and restaurants. And I'm not, again, being the snooty, my country's better and more developed and all that. Actually, in some ways, it's just like Atlantic City, cigarettes everywhere. So there you go. Here's these cute kids running on their bikes, riding their bikes, not running. A lot more electric motorbikes than when I was here 8 years ago, noticeably more. And then I think I said in another video, you have quite a few of the taxis are not just electric, they're the VinFast company, which is a government subsidized Vietnamese electric car maker. They're actually building a plant in the United States, in North Carolina, interestingly. They're going to try to tap into the American market, which would be pretty neat. But we've traveled in many electric taxis. They're beautiful. They're efficient, they're quiet, clean. So hats off to Vietnam in terms of their development and innovations, and the fact they have their own electric automaker. Quite impressive. And I'm not a car guy, so I can't really comment on the specs of those vehicles. But hey, just as a tourist and passenger, pretty awesome. Anyway, I digress again. This is cool. You see this all over Vietnam. Not just little park spaces, but exercise equipment. And right now you might think, oh gosh, nobody's here. It's dead. That's because it's the middle of the day. Most Vietnamese people do not want to go out when there's heat and sunlight, which makes sense because the heat is brutal. The humidity is like nothing I've ever felt before. And so this will actually be pretty full of people around 5, 6 in the morning. And then in the evening between about 4 to 6, all the way to sundown, you'll see locals. It's how senior citizens, if you want to call them that, stay in shape. You'll see kids playing here. But right now, dead. Another thing in Vietnam reminds me to use a cross-cultural comparison of some of the islands in Greece. Afternoon naps. You have a nice lunch. It's a hot afternoon. You take a 1 to 2 hour nap. All ages. And in fact, from what I understand from my wife, they even do this in the schools. So if you remember nap time in pre-K, well, you have nap time in K through 12 and university. Totally makes sense. hot, cool down, sleep on the floor with your fan, if you're privileged, your AC room. There you go. So I don't know what else I'm going to show you in this particular video, but you got a taste of, I guess, the outskirts of Bac Giang. And you can see the video here as just a glimpse of all the neat places. Oh, let me show you this. See these flags all over? So you'll always see two flags in Vietnam. You're going to see the one with the star, the national flag, and you're going to see the party flag. And from my very basic understanding of Vietnamese government structure and politics, one, of course, represents the nation state, and the other one is the political party, the Communist Party. They've had, of course, one-party rule since the end of what they call the American War. And back to why you see so many flags. Last time I was here, you didn't see this many flags. And it's not like there's suddenly just a shift or a government mandate to have more flags everywhere, because this is all over Vietnam. The reason for this, April 30th, 1975, they just celebrated the 50th anniversary of kicking out the Americans. Call it defeat, call it whatever you want. For them, it was the American War. So it was a very strong sense of national pride on the 50th anniversary. There were parades in Ho Chi Minh City, in Hanoi, and especially here in the north, of course. This was the other side of the war, if you were to call it the Vietnam War. There is a sense of national pride for victory and defeat of American imperialists, or whatever you want to call our so-called side. And I'm sure there's critics, there's people who don't really like the hyper-nationalism, like in any state, but there's the patriotism as well. So all along the street here, you see the Vietnamese flags. And again, I don't think you would see this prior to the anniversary. You would see here and there a few flags, but it's everywhere. So much like our 4th of July, where the flags come out and they're all over the place, nationalism is alive and thriving in many parts of the world, including Vietnam. So I'll conclude with that since I'm back on the main street. I'll do another follow-up video in a day or two. And for, I guess, purposes of documenting the time, today is the 24th, July 2025. Over and out.